Welcome to the Christ Connection Podcast. We are here to help and encourage you to enjoy your adventure with Jesus. I'm your host, Kevin Senapati Ratna. Let the journey begin. Hello and welcome to episode number 43 of the Christ Connection Podcast. My name is Kevin Senapati Ratna. I'm glad you could join us today. I think you're really going to like this one, and I think it could really have a huge impact on your life. My guest today is none other than John Eldredge. For those who are not familiar with John, he's an author, counselor, and teacher. He's known for such books as Wild at Heart, which I loved, Sacred Romance. He's also president of Ransomed Heart, a ministry devoted to helping people discover the heart of God, recover their hearts in God's love, and learn to live in God's kingdom. John earned his master's degree in counseling from Colorado Christian University under the direction of Larry Crabb and Dan Allender. He worked as a counselor in private practice before launching Ransomed Heart in the year 2000. John and his wife Stacy live in Colorado Springs, and today we're going to talk about his new book, Get Your Life Back, and I really think you're going to enjoy this, and it's going to kind of encourage you. So grab a pen, grab a notebook, and without further ado, my conversation with John Eldredge. All right, John, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Good to chat with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into your new book, Get Your Life Back, Everyday Practices for a World Gone Mad. But before we get there, I had a couple stray questions that I thought we'd start with, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
First one, I was looking at your bio on your website. You mentioned you being trained by Larry Crabb and Dan Allender back in the day. And I was thinking about mentorship and the role that mentors play in our life. When you think about kind of your journey, can you think of how that has impacted you and what people can get from mentors in their life?
Well, you know what, Kevin? In humility, I think I need to say everything I know I learned from someone else. Right? So I go way back to, I came to Christ in the 70s and wasn't raised in a family that had faith, and found my way into a church. And my first pastor, Dick Anderson in Southern California, was huge for me. Taught me to pray, taught me how to love God. And then you just start going along. Yep. Training as a therapist under Crabb and Allender. It was huge. It was absolutely huge. And then as a brand new therapist, you've got to supervise under someone. And my supervisor was a man named Brent. And we ended up becoming very close friends, but he was like an older sage figure in my life. And we ended up writing my first book, Sacred Romance, together. So as I look back, I'm like, oh, I owe everything. I owe everything to people who have taught me, even like stuff like fly fishing, right? Like, I love it, but I learned it because someone taught me.
If someone was saying, I need more mentors in their life, do you have any advice on, or have most of the mentors kind of just naturally come into your life or did you pursue them? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's an important question. So it has two parts to the answer. The first answer is some of my mentors actually are not living. I've learned so much from C.S. Lewis, though we've never met, and so to be open to God can mentor you. He can father you in so many ways, and it can come through the writings of others. Many people love Dallas Willard. And he's got some videos online, and you can watch his courses, and you can literally receive mentoring from Dallas without actually knowing him. So I just that's a very hopeful thought. I want to share that. And then you asked about pursuing. Yep. For the most part, you have to pursue it. People are busy, and everyone's got a full plate these days. And so you do kind of want to get yourself into those situations. Hey, can we have coffee? Hey, could I sit in on your class? Hey, can you show me how to do that? Ask questions.
That's really, really good. because it is both and kind of a thing. Some we pursue, some come our direction, and we gotta work there. Now, again, we're gonna get to your book in a second, but the guy who wrote Wild at Heart and all these epic and all these big things, one of the taglines I often use for this podcast is helping people on their adventure with Jesus. So with the man himself here, Mr. Adventure himself, I have to at least ask one question for my audience on that one. If you were had to give one piece of advice. Now, granted, you've written multiple books, so this is maybe hard to narrow it down, but that guy who's listening to this podcast on the way to work, on the bus, going to go to a cubicle that they're not excited about, if you were going to give them one kind of starting point to, kind of hang their hat on to get started on a new adventure with Jesus, where would you kind of give, or what encouragement would you give them kind of at that point of despair, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's adventure and then there's adventure. So there's stuff we go do, right? I want to learn to surf. I want to learn to dive. I'm going to go on a, bike trip across the state or something like that. And those are really good, and that really feeds the soul. But most of us don't get a lot of that. We got jobs and families, and I'm the adventure guy, but it's been a long time since I've done, something that really filled my soul like that, because life's full. But then there's adventure, and it's what your podcast is about, is that life with God actually is a phenomenal adventure. It's phenomenal. And I think the first big idea is the idea that your heart matters. God cares about your heart. And so what's my simple piece of advice? I would say, Jesus, what do you have for me today? Like literally just that. Jesus, what do you have for me today? Because one of the things that really changed my life with God was asking him, what do you have for me? Where are we headed? What are we doing? What are we up to? Instead of feeling like, well, he's up there and I'm down here and I'm kind of lobbying prayers up, God actually wants to talk to you. And he'll use all kinds of things to talk to you, music, songs, movies, something somebody says over lunch, but also in your own heart. God will speak to you in your heart. And as you just begin to ask, okay, Jesus, what do you have for me? He'll speak.
and that will lead to adventure. That is for sure.
It really will.
All right. So now shifting to your latest book, Get Your Life.
Can I add one more thing to
absolutely,
that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because it's so important to your show and to your listeners. So let's riff on this a little bit more. I would also say to folks, what is the risk you're willing to take? Because what Jesus said, he who seeks to save his life will lose it. Most of the things we do to secure a safe life end up killing us. And so adventure with God does require some risk taking. And Jesus may say something wild to you like, go talk to that girl 3 cubicles down, right? Ask her out, and you're like, what? Or he may say really wild stuff like quit your job. And this whole book writing thing, by the way, there's a wild story behind it. I was a young therapist. I was sitting in a marriage counseling session. I'm talking to 2 people, husband and wife, trying to listen to their story. And Jesus speaks to me during that session. And he says, John, you're talking to 2 people right now. I want you to talk to a lot more than that. And that's all he said. And I go on for the next 45 minutes, finish the session, and I'm leaving my office, and I'm like, what was that? God, what was that? And he said, you need to write, you need to speak, I have a bigger audience for you. And so I didn't even really go seeking it. It was an adventure he invited me into. But the point is, I had to take a risk.
You you said secure a safe life. Hey,
Yeah.
what are some other examples? Because I love that phrase. It's kind of the insulation that we give for ourselves. Can you give some other examples of what that looks like, where people are doing that, or is it more about pushing through what we already know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. Well, one thing will get you there quick is just what's killing you. What in your life is killing you right now? And it may be routine, or it may be that the work that you're in is not even in your gift set. It may be that you left a dream behind a long time ago. You trained as a teacher, but now you're selling shoes, and maybe God wants you to go be a teacher, and that's going to take some pretty big risks. So one question to ask is just what's killing you right now. But I would say safe life is one way. The other thing I'm aware of is I designed my entire life around comfort. And so if it's uncomfortable, I tend not to do it. It's uncomfortable for me to have a really honest conversation with my mom. That's like super uncomfortable because just who she is and because of our history. Well, that's going to be a big adventure for me to move into that. So I just start looking into areas of like, where have I just built? My whole life is built around comfort. And that is not good for the soul. The soul atrophies there. So those are just some ways to ask yourself, what door, where's the wardrobe door, Jesus?
Where's our C.S. Lewis? We come back, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you can never fail going back to C.S. Lewis, I think, right?
Right on.
All right. Since we've gone down this vein, I got to go one more with that. As far as comfort, there's a balance, I would guess, between pursuing things that are uncomfortable and then being reckless.
Yes.
Any kind of how to navigate when am I just pushing, and it probably goes back to that original question, God, what do you have for me today?
Yes.
But any other kind of
yes. Don't be stupid.
That's good.
Okay. So here, like the higher level the risk, get some input. Like if you're honestly thinking about quitting your job, run that by a couple people. Like talk to your friends, talk to your priest, like talk to somebody, if you're thinking about marrying someone, run that by a couple people, talk to a marriage counselor, ask your bishop what he thinks, whatever, right? Your pastor, your spiritual mentor, your parents, So I would say the higher level the risk, get some input. Big stuff. I'm going to quit my job and move to Thailand and fight human trafficking. That may be the great adventure of your life. But before you do something like that, get some input.
I like that because the lower the risk, that also means some things you can just try.
Yeah, totally.
If it's not quitting your job, if it's just going and talking to someone or sending someone an email or going back to the mentoring thing, shooting someone a text, can we go to coffee? That's not a high risk.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Taking an art class, right? Signing up to learn, martial arts in a dojo. I mean, go try some stuff, right?
That's really good. Now, this latest book is kind of feels from the title. I mean, from your titles. You write Wild at Heart, Beautiful Outlaw, Epic, Killing Lions, and now we're talking about things like 1 minute pausing and detaching. What's the story between? Because being an author myself, there's normally a story behind why you write a book like this. What's the origin of Get Your Life Back?
Well, so if you take all those earlier titles, it's designed around. I think there's a big life God has for us. I think John 10:10 is true. I think He's come that we may have life and have it fully. But what I noticed was that I was losing my life. And most of the people around me were losing their life because of the madness of the hour that we live in. Like, this is a really hard moment on the earth to be a human being. We can kind of unpack what I mean by that, but the regular assaults on our humanity. And so, yep, there's a story, and the story came out of my own life of I just found myself getting home most nights fried, numb on my good nights, but more often not, just cooked, just baked. I don't have room for anything now. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to make dinner. I just want to veg. I just want to binge watch, my favorite shows or whatever. And I'm like, this is not life. This is not good. My soul is not well. That might be another way of saying it. I could tell my soul was not well. And I began to seek God about that. And so, over the course of a couple of years, he took me into a way of getting my soul back and living sanely in this crazy world so that I can go on adventures, so that I can have life, so that I can find God. Yeah. So there's a story. Yeah.
I just gotta say my initial reaction, because I finished it last night, and I feel some books you feel like, okay, I finished the book and okay, I've got my lessons. This one feels like I'm gonna be carrying it for a while, and I've already instituted my version of the 1 minute pause that we'll talk about in a moment, and it just kind of has that depth that you kind of, okay, this things that will alter over time. So just thank you for writing this book.
Yeah, right on.
You talked a little bit about the onslaught that we're feeling. Can you kind of unpack that a little bit more? What's going on in the world today that makes us in this vulnerable position?
Yeah. It's the intersection. It's like a perfect storm. It's the intersection of several things. The pace of life. So the promise was that technology was going to get us more margin in our lives to do the things that we love, to garden or to paint or to read or whatever it is. You're a runner, you can have more time. But what happened was technology just required us to keep up with the pace of technology. And now the amount of media, we are consuming more media in a week than would crash a laptop. 10 hours of media a day of some form, some sort of screen time, kind of media consumption. That is brutal on the human soul. Like, people were not meant to have to live at that pace. And if you ask anybody these days, how you doing? Within the first 3 sentences, they're going to say something about busy, or oh man, I'm just pressed, or I'd love to chat, but I don't have time right now. So there's pace of life, right? We are running, and then there's the inundation of technology. We're spending between 4 to 9 hours a day on our mobile devices, and that really actually messes with your brain. We can say more of this later, but it actually changes the structure of your brain. It's shortening our attention span. We're living in the shallows. We're fast, and we're preoccupied with technology, and there's very little time left to be human. And then I would add one more thing. We are exposed to too much heartache. There's just too much to care about, to be honest. And any caring person finds themselves feeling that, like, 2 million kids trafficked into the sex trade every year, and, what's happening to the planet, and, Syria and the refugee crisis. I mean, you just go on and on and on, American politics and, British politics, French politics. It's a mess. And actually, I don't know if anyone has told you this, dear listeners, but you actually were not meant to be exposed to that much heartache. It really is hard on the human soul. Human beings were meant to live within communities, but just simply in your social world, in your social media world, you are hearing way too many heartbreaking stories. And so the pace of life, the inundation of technology, too much media, and then just heartache, and that you put all that together, and it's brutal on your humanity.
So what do you feel like is the result then? I mean, what's the effect on the human at that point?
Well, here's what I noticed. So I'm a grandpa now.
Right.
I've got three little grandchildren 1 and 2 years old. I love being with them. It's so freaking fun. But I noticed that I could not be present to them for more than about 5 minutes. I would want to check my phone. I kind of want to see what's going on in the grown-up world, look at the news, see if a text came in, it would immediately get my attention instead of playing with my grandkids. And I'm like, whoa, like this is messed up. Like I love them and I'm a pretty good grandpa, but I'm not because I wasn't able to be present. And then I started looking across kind of the spectrum of my life and I realized I love to read. I'm not reading anymore. My wife gave me a mountain bike for Christmas last year. It's been months since I've ridden, months. And I started looking at all these indicators of, oh wow, I'm hard pressed and I'm not doing well. And then, to be honest, pissed in traffic, like just my reaction, like short fuse, not a lot of grace for people. And then the last thing was what I call the flinch. A friend would text with some hard news or text asking for some time or, hey, could I get a phone call with you? And I would flinch. Like it wasn't welcome. It was unwelcome. Like my soul's like, I got nothing. I got nothing left. People, stop asking me for stuff, And so it was all that. It was like the loss of joy. I'm not doing the things that bring me life. And I got nothing to offer people that I love.
And so this book really gives people kind of some remedies to go, and the kind of the central place is the 1 minute pause. It seems like, at least for me, that seemed like the heart of the book. Can you explain that? As I said, I already have instituted it. Well, I'm trying. I'm just started on this whole thing, but what is the 1 minute pause?
Well, here's the thing. I realized that nowhere in my day did I ever really just stop and do nothing. Just nothing. I get off a phone call, I make another one. I answer an email, I answer 10 more. I get off a text and I make a phone call, and while I'm on the phone, I'm Googling something I need to research. And then it was, get home and go straight from the car into the house and handle what needs are here. And, it's just boom, 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 boom. And what God invited me into was learning to pause during my day. And it sounds so simple, but it has been immense. It's been a rescue. So here's what I mean. So when I pull into work in the morning, before I get out of my car, I just sit there. I turn the podcast off that I was listening to, and I do nothing. I literally let my soul catch up. And so I just breathe, and then we can talk a little bit about how I use the pause. I literally practice something called benevolent detachment and that kind of thing. But and then I do it again around. Well, it's become so important to us that in our building now we have bells that go off at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. And it's very disruptive. There's monastery bells ring out. And you're in a meeting and the whole staff knows everybody's stopping for 60 seconds. Everybody stop and just reset. And spiritually, it's amazing. Like you create a little bit of room for God, boom, he's happy to meet you there. And then like in terms of the neuroscience, it literally actually resets your brain. It helps you have more attention for the next thing you're about to do and that sort of thing. But the 1 minute pause is where the book starts, in a whole number of different practices because it's doable. It's accessible. If you start talking to people about things like fasting or spiritual retreats and stuff, they're gone. I'm gone because I'm like, I don't have time for that. But I can pause. I can learn to do that. And so that's where it begins. And so let me jump in right now and tell you something really cool. So we developed an app called the 1 minute pause. It's free. You get on the App Store right now. It's called 1 minute pause, and the creator is Ransomed Heart, which is our organization. It's free, gang, and it'll guide you through using the practice of a pause, getting it in your day, and then like how to use it. And so anyway, I just want to give that a shout out because it's super cool. And we just released it 3 weeks ago and people are loving it. It's a lifeline in the madness.
Very cool. Like I said, I did another version. I just had the alarms, but I'm going to have to check it out myself. That sounds like
you're going to dig.
All right. With just got to ask, when you're in a meeting, how does that go when the bells go out?
Let me explain to people, it's disruptive. And we just go, hi, I'm sorry, we have a practice here in our office that everybody just takes a 60-second pause. And every single person that's been introduced to it's like, that is amazing. I love that. I'm going to bring that back to my work, so, or to my family, or to I'm going to do that, on my commute in the morning on the metro. I'm just going to put my headphones on and do that. So people are digging it.
Well, we'll have to make sure that our podcast does not go over the bells.
Yeah, exactly, right?
We have to pause during the podcast because you have a podcast. I'm guessing you just don't record at 10 and 2. Is that how that?
Exactly. But there's a number of meetings where we forget and the bells go off and it's really good because it just causes everybody, you get spinning. I think the overall effect of the world right now is everybody is just spun up. You just get wired, you get spun up, you get sideways. And the pause is a way to just let it all go. Let it all go.
And you mentioned benevolent detachment, which I love that whole concept. Why is it necessary? I mean, we've kind of touched on it, but I mean, what does that do, and what does that look like?
What does it do? So here's a couple doorways into it. First off, Jesus says these crazy things like, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." You're like, oh, I must not be living that life, and then like Peter says, cast all your cares upon him because he cares for you. And it's a really beautiful invitation, but I think most of us have a pretty hard time doing it. Stuff piles up, not just in our thoughts, but on our hearts, right? Like some friends today are grieving and at a loss that they experienced, and I'm aware of that. And that's going to pile up on all the other things of my day. Like things just begin to build up on your heart and soul. And so this idea of casting it all on God. So here's how it happened. Here's the story. For the past couple of years, I would come to Jesus with something in prayer. I need some guidance, or my wife is sick or something, just normal stuff, right? I just, hey, Jesus, I need some help. And he would respond to me by saying, give everyone and everything to me. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, but Lord, what I was talking about, and then he would say it again, give everyone and everything to me. I'm serious, Kevin. He repeated this for almost 2 years. And I'm like, I get it already. But I didn't get it. Like that was the point. I was just carrying stuff. What do we do with my aging mom? Is she going to need, to go into a memory care unit? And what do I do with work? And, what do I do with this big tax bill that just came in? And, just all life, right? And learning, guys, this is going to be so huge, learning to let it go. And the beauty of the 1 minute pause is all we're asking you to do is just let it go for 60 seconds. We're not asking you to let it go for the rest of your life. We're just saying there's a couple moments in your day where you just let it go. And for me, bedtime is a really good one. Like when I'm finally done with the day, if I want to sleep, I got to let it all go. I don't want to go to bed thinking about it, and I don't want to wake up thinking about it. I mean, I was dreaming about work. I was having work dreams, right? Where I'm continuing my work day in my dreams, for heaven's sake. And so benevolent detachment, the idea is this: it's benevolent because it's not cynicism, it's not anger, it's not resignation, it's kindness. It's just saying, in kindness, I got to let this go. And then detachment, learning to kind of unvelcro yourself from the things that have really piled up on your soul, like letting people go, letting conversations go, letting emails go. There's an email I read this morning that I probably shouldn't have read, and I'm ready to fire back a really juicy response. And I got to let it go. I got to let it go, because that's the stuff that fries the soul. And so learning benevolent detachment has been this massive rescue. And part of it goes back to the earlier thing about we're just presented with too much information. The latest shooting, the latest earthquake, the famine, and it's just too much. And so somewhere in your day, you just got to stop and let it go.
Is a well, two parts. I kind of got two thoughts going here at the same time. I try to. First, I loved how with the benevolent detachment you talk about it's even good stuff you have to let go of. People who are in high, compassion ministry type things, even they need to let it go. Do you find it harder to get release stuff that are on the good side than or both hard to let go?
Well, we don't even think of the good stuff. The bad stuff is right in front of us, right? And by the way, there's research that shows that simply being exposed to traumatic news is traumatizing. The studies that were done during 9/11, that people who watched it on their televisions, in other time zones, experienced the same PTSD as people who were present there in New York. So you got to be really careful what you expose yourself to. And so the bad stuff's like, I got to let that go. I just got to let that go. That's pretty obvious. The good stuff is harder because it's your compassion, it's your empathy, it's your care. You care about your kids, you care about, your neighbor, you care about your work. And, but nonetheless, it's burdens the soul. It really does. And kind of the couple quick tests are just this. I'll just give you a quick test. When was the last time you felt carefree? When was the last time you felt lighthearted? We don't really realize it's happening to us, but you're like, oh yeah, vacation 2 years ago, I felt carefree. But Jesus really is inviting us, that passage about, come to me, all you who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Peterson translates that in the Message as, keep company with me, Jesus says, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And here's a cool little secret about benevolent detachment. Actually, the more that you are able to let stuff go, the more room there is in your life for joy, the more room there is in your life for love, the more room in your life for God. It's really wonderful.
It makes me think now. I'm going off script here in a second, but as when you talk about news and things like that, I've kind of been in a process of trying to evaluate what information I even let into my life. Yeah, and local news I've given up 2 decades ago, but what kind of things you allow in? Because you can't absorb it all, and we live in a world that you could be up to date on Rwandan politics if you wanted to. There's just too much out there. Do you have any frameworks you'd help if someone's trying to, say, what do I need to? We'll stick with the news for a second. What do I need to consume and what do I not need to consume? Or is that going to be very different for different people?
Well, it is different because some people have to be aware of certain things because of their occupation but I would say this, gang, there's a couple of things about news that you need to understand. First off, news is a commodity that is sold to you. And so they have to get your attention. Everyone's competing for your attention, by the way. Okay, so pause. We're going to riff on this. Your attention is the last bit of real estate that is being fought over. Everybody is competing for your attention. And so it's the clickbait and the notifications and, all that stuff, right? Well, the news is actually like that. I don't think I used to think the news was like an objective thing, but it's not. Those news outlets are competing for your attention. And so just notice it's not stories of, hey, Ted and Nancy got back together this week, and hey, Jennifer is using the pause and she's really getting some more joy in her life. That's not the news. The news is the shocking. It's the alarming. It's because they are competing for your attention. And so here's a different way of thinking of it is protect your attention. Protect your attention. Don't just let stuff grab it. Having said that, you asked for some guidelines. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Yep. In 5 minutes, you can check to see if something very significant is happening in the world that you need to be aware of. And after that, pull out. Pull out. You actually don't need to know what's happening in Rwandan politics this week. You don't, right. And you just don't. You don't need to know about the sardine fishermen in Argentina right now. There isn't a darn thing you can do about it. And so this stuff is competing for your soul. And my idea is fight back, man. Take your soul back.
It reminds me of, I think it's the book Essentialism, and one of the points is the absolute unimportance of most everything. They're really
right.
Most, which is funny. When I did, it's probably 20 years ago. I stopped, any local news type thing. I just because local news for sure is just who killed who, and that kind of thing. And so I stopped and. I haven't, maybe I've missed out, but I had most stuff. My life has gone on since then. We'll stick with the detachment. That also speaks to. There's the 1 minute pause, but then there's also structural, bigger things that you seem to be encouraging people to look at, taking that to a next level, because that. Seems to be learning from Jesus there. Where would people, once they get that 1 minute pause, where would they build from there?
Well, take a look at your social media consumption. You probably can trim that back some. Because the thing is, if you buy a little bit of real estate back, you get to do stuff that you love to do. And so what restores you? What renews you? For me, I've got to get out. I've got to get outside and at least walk. And so I'll just get up and walk outside the building. 5 minutes. We're not talking heroics here, but I will get up, I will leave my office, I will walk around outside the building. And as I'm doing that, I'm letting it all go and I'm enjoying the day. Like, what's the day doing? Oh, wow, it's foggy this morning. I'm going to throw a coat on and go walk around 5 minutes. Simple things like that allow you to nourish your soul. And then I just throw, like, this is the simplest, most accessible thing in the world that most people don't take advantage of, and it's beauty. Human soul is designed to be nourished by beauty. We love it. We're absolutely enamored by it. When people take vacations, they don't go to ugly places, right? They go to beautiful places. They don't go to strip malls or strip mines. They go to what they think is beautiful, and that's fine because that's your version of it. For some people, it's the beach. For other people, it's Paris. Whatever. That's fine. But the thing is, it's beauty. It's beauty. And here's the deal. Beauty heals the soul. And you can actually let beauty into your life every day. Like, that's an easy thing. Music, the view out the train window as you commute into work, your garden, photography, the things that you decorate your office with or your home. Like, you can do this. It's very doable. And here's the thing. Most people have beauty all around them and they never stop to let it in. You just blast past it. Like, here's my confession. I have no idea what it's like outside right today. I have no idea. It's probably a beautiful day out there, but I've been so busy, I haven't even paid attention to it. Here's an idea of let beauty into your life, whatever that is for you. So, get music back, get reading back. If it's a walk, get that back. If it's nature for you, get that back. Like, you don't need to take a vacation to go get it. You can find it because beauty heals the soul. It heals the soul.
I love that because it's kind of, once you eliminate some stuff, you're creating that margin, and it's almost like, okay, now we can play again.
Exactly.
What are those things that are going to spark joy or whatever that within you? I realize now that there's no way I'm going to get through all the things I wanted to, which is okay because we're detaching here. And let me encourage the listener not to detach from the podcast. That's not what. If you're going to cut something out, cut somewhere else. I don't know, but if for going through this process for you, having written as many books as you have, I'm sure certain books you take things with you from. Do you have an initial guess on what you're going to take away from this book in your own personal life? What's going to have that long-lasting fruit for you?
Oh, I'm already doing better. Like, I wrote the book out of the process of getting better. I need my soul was just so fried, and I'm better. In the good news is I'm not just better, but I'm living more sanely so that I can stay better, right? So I'm so much better. Like, I'm playing with my grandkids now, and I don't care what time it is. I don't need to look at my phone, and I am present to the gifts in my life. Yeah, I can pay attention to what my wife is saying to me in the morning, and not just like check out. Just simple things. There's more joy in my life. There's much more healing, and it increases my capacity for things like this. Like, I love podcast conversations. I love this. I tell you what, 6 months ago, I kind of would have dreaded this interview. But not anymore. I love it. And I'm energized by it, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying my life. And so in the concept of the book, I really put the cookies on the bottom shelf. Like, whatever it is we do to get our life back, it's got to be very doable. It can't be monks. We can't all move to the South Pacific. It's got to be available now. And the things that I'm doing and the things I lay out in the book, I'm better. I'm a happier person.
Right. And I'll be honest, I would encourage everyone to read it. We'll get to where they can find it and all that, and we'll remind them of the 1 minute. But I do gotta go to my favorite quote from the book. So, my daily walk is a good benchmark because it's simple, accessible, and tells me whether I'm living realistically. Now, maybe it spoke to me because I've seen your dogs walk back and forth, and my dog's sitting over here, and so that walk with the dog is life-giving to me. Not in Minnesota today with negative degrees, but when I can. But I love the phrase, whether or not I'm living realistically. Is there, because again, that's a bigger, that was a barometer you gave to yourself.
Yep.
How, kind of as we're landing the plane, so to speak, what would you tell people, because you said you're feeling better, what kind of hope would you give for people to live realistically? Does that make sense?
Yeah. You already have barometers in your life, gang. You do. There are things that you enjoy that if you are not doing it, it's letting you know things are off the rails. So for some of you, it's playing the piano, and you just enjoy that. And if you're not doing that anymore, that's the yellow light on the dashboard, right? And for some of you, it's reading, and for others of you, it's, you love taking your motorcycle out for a spin. And if you haven't done that for 6 weeks, like that's really helpful. You just pick a couple barometers for yourself. Pick very realistic things, not, I'm going to learn Chinese this year. Like, pick very realistic things that you enjoy, that are good reflections of, when I'm doing that, my life is sane. And when I don't have room for that anymore, my life has gone off the rails. Because then it'll just let you know. You just go, oh my gosh, I haven't taken a walk in 10 days. What is up? I got to get that back. And then by getting the walk back, you get part of your soul back. And by getting part of your soul back, you have more of God. So here's the big idea we haven't touched on. Life in this moment, life in this world requires a soul that is saturated with God. His love, his life, his strength, his resilience, just the presence of God in our lives. But life in this world, in this hour, in this moment, is perfectly designed to prevent that from happening. Life in this world shrivels the soul. But the soul is the vessel God fills. And so if we're having a hard time finding life, finding God, hearing from him, it's because our soul is so shriveled. So we take care of our souls, and God shows up, and he fills us, and he saturates us again. And what you kind of ruined for any other life. You're like, I can't do what I used to do anymore because it's so crazy. It's not healthy is what I mean. It's.
No, that's because that is the goal. The goal is not just to go for a walk. The goal is to enjoy God and be with him, and to out of that. But you have to have a soul that's healthy to get there.
Yeah.
Where can people? Well, obviously put in the show notes about the book and whatnot. But where you want to send people or learn more about what you're doing and things like that as we wrap up today.
Yeah. So johneldredge.com can get you there. Also, I really want to come back to get in the App Store, find the 1 minute pause, download it on your phone, iPhone and Android, and try it. Just try it for a few days. It's going to be so lovely that you're like, man, this is great, and it's doable. So, get that.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely be doing that when I get off the call here myself. Thanks for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. It's a great book. I hope everyone goes out and gets themselves a copy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great chatting with you, man.
Well, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Let me just say I'm recording this part a few weeks after the conversation, and I've been using the Pause app since then. I really like it. I've even used it with my wife, used it together. So I think you'll enjoy it. Check it out. To see the other show notes and get the links he mentioned, etc., head on over to christconnection.cc/podcast. Again, that's christconnection.cc/podcast. While you're there, check out the other resources that we have for your adventure with Jesus, because that's why we exist, to help you out. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and share it with a friend if it's helpful to you, and we'll see you in the next episode. So until next time, thanks for listening.